I'm an evangelical Christian. That goes to the core of my identity. The real organizing ethical principle of my life and ministry has been what I refer to as the sanctity of life.
For those of us who support the public display of the Ten Commandments, our prayers are being answered, standing in defense of the traditional definition of marriage as between one man and one woman. Make no mistake about it. This decision is the beginning of the end for Roe v. Wade.
After 32 years in Christian ministry, I'm finding myself disagreeing with my colleagues, my friends, the people I've kept company with on critical moral and ethical questions.
Okay, hey buddy, Roy, good to see you.
It has troubled me that the number of pro-lifers that have, in my estimation, jumped on a bandwagon of very pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment. Is that a pro-life ethic?
I think it absolutely is, Rob. People of conscience and people of faith have responsible gun ownership in order to protect innocent human life, more so than their own life. Because the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
It gets harder to reconcile these two conflicting positions of being pro-life and what I'm going to call pro-gun. When you own a firearm, you own a lethal weapon. And you can intentionally or unintentionally take a human life. So I have to ask the question, under what circumstances are we as Christians allowed to take another human life? Do I shoot to defend myself, my family? Is my car worth shooting someone and ending their life? The whole gun question for me is a very good barometer for where we are as a culture, certainly where the conservative movement stands on certain paramount moral questions.
How can we defend our families without the right to guns?
They want to use shootings to perpetuate their agenda. And that agenda, I believe, is to take our guns from us.
People forget that many generations of evangelicals became pacifists, conscientious objectors, up until very recent times. Evangelicals were largely Democrats. I will make a public confession, maybe for the first time. I voted for Jimmy Carter.
And what doth the Lord require of thee?
In fact, that was true of a lot of evangelicals. Evangelicals were overwhelmingly Democrat until the campaign of Ronald Reagan.
With thy God.
It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better.
It was in the Reagan era that massive numbers of evangelicals came into the Republican Party. I did too.
Those of you in the National Association of Evangelicals are known for your spiritual and humanitarian work.
Ronald Reagan engaged evangelicals in a brilliant and very successful way.
Thank you for your prayers.
If you were an American evangelical in the 1980s and 1990s, virtually to a one, we were card-carrying Republicans. Over time, I started seeing a number of Christian leaders more or less taking their cues from party leadership. And instead of originating policy proposals, they were taking orders. But instead of acknowledging that as such, the evangelical community started embracing these packages as if they were their own. And I think after a while just lost sight of the fact that some of these bundles included things that were not historically part of the evangelical agenda of concerns, and maybe not even consistent with our moral and ethical principles.
Thank you! Woo! Now, yes, NRA leadership is needed now more than ever, and you all are needed now more than ever.
I started to grow more and more concerned as I saw this conflation, this bundling of political agenda items with Christian concerns.
And it's why we're here, to celebrate family and faith and freedom, knowing that, yeah, God shed his grace on thee, America.
And they all come together as sort of a singular package.
If I were in charge,
and you either take the whole package or none of it at all.
They would know that waterboarding is how we baptize terrorists.
So if you give us a slate and say, well, it's all or nothing, that puts Christian people like me in a very difficult position. We have to be governed by our conscience, not by a particular political agenda. So I recently left the Republican Party, and I'm now an independent.
It's time for us that love and treasure life to loan our voice of conscience to the national debate over increasing gun violence in our culture, just as we have the debate over scissor and suction violence. It's all of a piece. Praise be thou, Lord God, King of the universe, who gives us bread from the earth.
I want to be known as a Christian, as a Christ follower.
Take, eat, he said.
Not as some kind of a Christ follower, not as a conservative Christ follower. Neither would I want to be known as a progressive Christ follower. I want to be a Christ follower. And the question of the sanctity of human life plays out over the entire life spectrum. That is something that, as a Christian, I have to address in some way. It obligates me, it calls to me.